from Do-It-Yourself Health. Today we are talking about Sibo. Sibo is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's very prevalent today. I see it in a lot of my clients. We do testing for it, and it's the #1 test that I recommend to anyone who is suffering with IBS or has an IBS diagnosis. And I'm not going to talk too much about what Sibo. I'm going to write more about that in the blog post associated with this video. But today we have a success story, because one of the things about Sibo is it's tough to treat. So a lot of people, when they find out they have Sibo, they Google it, and they see that there's a high recurrence rate, and psychologically that's very difficult. It sort of sets up this self-fulfilling prophecy and stress. What if I treat this and it comes back? So I'm all about positive, uplifting success stories. I'm an IBS success story, and I have another Sibo success story with me today, Rebecca. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Say hi.
Hi, I am Rebecca, and yeah, I've been a sufferer of IBS for many years, for, gosh, maybe actually 20 years at this point, and it wasn't until recently I discovered that I had Sibo. That was about 5 years ago, and I am a Sibo success story. I'm excited to share it with you today.
Thank you so much for being here today. I think you're going to really help a lot of people. So the first question is, when did your Sibo, I guess you said you've been suffering for 20 years. When did you figure out it was Sibo? What was going on at the time?
So that's a complicated question, really, because since I have been suffering from IBS for so many years, my doctors always said, that everybody has IBS, it's normal, there's nothing you're doing that's wrong, you don't have to change anything. It was really a gradual culmination, and I knew I had IBS, which led to me knowing I had leaky gut. And then through a food elimination diet, that was when I self-diagnosed my Sibo. But it was, it wasn't just Sibo. It was the fact that I had this imbalance in my gut, and then the inflammation led to leaky gut, and then the fast motility I had in my gut then led to this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And my doctors, at this point, I had totally written them off and was felt like I was on my own and on this journey. And it was actually through the Practical Paleo cookbook, when I was going through my food elimination diet, that I discovered that FODMAPs, fermentable oligo monosaccharide and polyols, were my problem food. And then through seeing that the symptoms associated with FODMAP intolerance, I had Sibo. So that was about 5 years ago that I discovered the Sibo, the small bacterial overgrowth.
Wow, so you were kind of like a pioneer in this, because Sibo, there's a lot of people writing about it, and it's getting more and more recognition. And I think maybe doctors will start testing for it. They don't right now. But so 5 years ago, when there just wasn't that much information out there, what did you do? Did you start with a diet? Did you work with someone?
I did. So at that time, my symptoms were fast motility, like I said, and I had lots of undigested food when I went to the bathroom. And then I also had a lot of bloating and gas. And then, as a result of all of this inflammation and imbalance, I was also really depressed and had a fog brain. So I just had all the symptoms. I was really sluggish. And so what I did was I immediately went on a low FODMAP paleo diet. And immediately I did notice a difference in bloating. And then gradually, I would say maybe after 2 or 3 months, I had a significant decrease in gas. But it took quite a while for my motility to kind of get back on track. It took years for me to get to that really inflamed state, so it wasn't, gonna right itself right away.
Okay, so, one of the lessons in what I hear you say is patience. Like, you were patient. I know that a lot of people try things, and if it doesn't work right away, they move on, but you just kind of stuck with it until, I guess you had a little bit of success, and then you stuck with it. And it does take a while for the body to heal. We live in such a fast-paced society that we just want everything immediately. I think technology and the internet is like something that just trains our brain that everything's immediate. But the bodies are ancient. They heal slowly. So that's
yeah. I mean, also, it was like I made so many drastic changes. I felt that way with the diet, that it was a huge drastic change. I mean, I always considered myself to be a very healthy person. Regular exercise, sleep was so important to fit in my day. And I really felt like I ate a balanced diet. So when I changed and I cut out gluten and corn and legumes and all these specific carbohydrates of the FODMAP diet, it was a lot of work, and I really expected to see results quickly, and it was really discouraging when I didn't. I mean, that being said, though, like what you said, I did see some results, so I knew I was on the right track, and therefore, knew I needed to stick with it.
So we talked a little bit about this earlier, and I know you told me that you did the diet for a while and then you worked with a practitioner. So
yes.
Yeah.
So the original, it's funny, with my IBS and the fog brain and the fatigue and all this, I still wasn't sure that I wanted to know what was wrong with my body. Because I knew it would take a big change. I was kind of in denial for a while. And it wasn't until I decided I wanted to get pregnant that I was like, I'm clearly not healthy. I'm not digesting nutrients, and I want to be my optimal self for pregnancy. So that was when I went on the food elimination diet and started the low FODMAP diet. And I had a struggle with infertility for about 2 years. And at the, right in the middle of that, about 1.5 years of doing a low FODMAP diet and still just not having the motility that I wanted, I said, you know what, I'm just going to splurge. I'm going to go see a functional medical doctor. I'm going to get those tests that my medical doctor won't prescribe for me. And that was really, I think, the turning point for me. My doctor had told me that I was really just managing my symptoms with the low FODMAP diet, and that I needed an extra push. I needed some supplements, and I needed like a protocol in order to just wipe it out and be able to move on for good.
Okay, so then tell us about your protocol.
Oh my gosh, it was like the list is like as tall as I am of the things that my practitioner wanted me to take. It included things like some sort of silica, I think, to close up the tears in my gut, to heal my leaky gut. It was a lot of probiotics. It was an antimicrobial. It was a bunch of supplements and things I was deficient in. But I ended up getting a positive pregnancy test right when I was prescribed that protocol. So a lot of these things are not tested for pregnancy safety. So the practitioner had instructed me to only take the probiotics and the prebiotics. So I was prescribed Prescript Assist and Megaspore Biotic. And then since I couldn't take any of the other things, I knew that I still had tears in my gut. So I made homemade bone broth, low FODMAP bone broth, and had that every day as well. And then just really focused on myself and tried to reduce as much stress as possible. So within 6 weeks after both of my, bottles were gone, I retested and my Sibo came back as normal. So it was really just the Prescript Assist and the Megaspore Biotic that did it.
So it's amazing. So it's just a lesson in less is more. And I actually happen to have these probiotics with me, the Prescript Assist and the Megaspore Biotic. This you can buy on Amazon. This you need a practitioner to prescribe for you because it's pharmaceutical grade. It's very strong. This is something that I also recommend to people with Sibo, because people with Sibo have trouble with probiotics, especially probiotics with lactobacillus. It can make them worse. So these are spore-based. So and the Megaspore Biotic is actually antibacterial, antifungal. So it's both a probiotic and an antibiotic at the same time. So basically just those two things, bone broth and stress reduction. And stress reduction actually is not a small thing. It's a huge thing. I would say, in my experience, it's one of the biggest things. And that's something I think, I wanted to discuss with you, because one of the causes, I believe, of SIBO, I don't know if you agree, is stress, and how important it is to reduce your stress, because that is something that helps bring your nervous system and your body into balance, and probably has something to do with balancing motility. So if you could just talk about stress reduction and the role that it played in your healing, that would be great.
Sure. When my IBS, anytime my IBS, pinnacled, it was always in moments of intense stress. And before I discovered my Sibo, I actually went through 5 to 6 just intense years. I made a move across the country by myself. I was broke as a joke in San Francisco. My family underwent lots of disease and crisis. I went to grad school, started my first few years of teaching. It just went on, and I was just in such a bad state at the end of all of that. And, when I knew stress played a huge role in my IBS, because I would go on vacation and my motility would improve. As I said, I had an infertility journey. I achieved pregnancy a few times. I lost those pregnancies, but when I was pregnant, my symptoms went away. And it was like, the stress of infertility went away for that short period of time. And so stress obviously played a role, but it just felt so out of hand. And I didn't know how to eliminate those things from my life. I can't eliminate family. I can't eliminate work. I can't eliminate my infertility. So it really had to do with my perspective. I mean, I was exercising, getting massages, going to acupuncture. I was doing all of these things to help combat my stress. But what I really needed was kind of a reality check and a change in mentality. I mean, stress plays a huge role. That's all I have to say. I did get, as part of the practitioner did with me, I had a huge cortisol imbalance. So, stress plays a huge role.
And I understand that, also getting pregnant, you were very, very happy. And now you're a mom. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So that has stresses in itself. I think that just changing your perspective and dealing with stress, I totally agree. It's not the stress. We can never control the outside world. We can just control our reactions to it. So tell me, what you learned from your experience and what life is like after Sibo.
The biggest thing I learned from my experience was, like you said earlier, patience. It's really, I think we are our toughest critics, and we want a quick fix, right? I mean, we feel like crap and we want to feel better. And, but really what I needed to practice the most was patience and nurturing for myself. I was doing the best I could with all the information I had, and I was working really hard. And sometimes you just have to accept that you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have bad days, and just really enjoy the good ones. And, when I say bad days, I mean, I would have flares. Like in the middle of this year and a half that I was very restrictive with my low FODMAP diet, I would still have flares, or I would go out to a party and I would drink, or I would have, gluten or dairy. And you know what? Gotta be gentle with yourself, and it's okay to have a flare or to mess up. But ultimately, you got to stick with it, be patient, be gentle with yourself. Meditation really helped. And talking it out really helped. And then the other thing that really helped was there was a point where I did go through IVF and it failed the first time. And I finally, after that failure, allowed myself to grieve. I allowed myself to be pissed off. I allowed myself to be sad. And it's funny that taking the pressure off of my shoulders for needing to be happy and needing to be in a good place actually reduced a ton of stress. So, meet yourself where you are, be gentle with yourself, and just remind yourself you're doing the best you can with your resources you have.
Thank you so much. I think that's all the time we have, but those are such words of wisdom, things that I try to get across to my clients, but it's so, when they hear about it from someone who actually went through it, I think it carries more weight. I've never had Sibo personally, So thank you so much for sharing your experience.
You're
and
so welcome.
story. Okay.
Well, thank you for asking, and it was so wonderful to talk with you all. Good luck, everybody. Stick with it. You're doing the right thing, and I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.